Good day, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Haz Mat Guys. I'm Michael Monaco. Let's get into it.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 43, and we are the premier podcast dealing with hazmat response for fire responders, where we try to give you the knowledge and the insight to do our job safely and effectively. I'm Bobby Salvesen, and I'm glad to be here with my co-host, Mike Monaco.
I'm glad to be here as well. Always glad to be here. Live, streaming live for anybody watching us live.
We're doing
Hello out there.
Yeah, we're on YouTube. If you +1 us, you can follow us, and when we go live on this Clown Factory, there's views popping up everywhere. We will notify you when but we don't have really a set schedule. That's probably why.
No, it's kind of just, hey, we probably should throw that out in advance a couple days. Be like, hey, we're going to do this day, so that if anybody were to actually want to watch this show instead of just happen to stumble upon it as they're trying to fall asleep, they'd be able to see it.
By all means, use this to go to sleep. There is I was going through the iTunes reviews. I thought it was a pretty good one from Slider 1585, and he says, been working with the Hazmat team for 10 years, was looking for a hazmat educational podcast to listen to while going to sleep. No, I'm joking. He said, while working. Something that would keep me refreshed with the basics and also teach me something new, and I hit the jackpot. These guys really bring the knowledge of hazmat down to a level of understanding. I shared this with the guys at work, and I'm looking forward to their input. Keep up the good work, guys. I'd like to say thank you to Slider 1585 for his...
So who are they talking about? We should probably listen to that show. Maybe we can get a few pointers.
Sounds really good.
Actually know what we're doing.
What else?
Well, we got our upcoming shows in Massachusetts is going to be the big one, as well as Nashville. We're going to be doing a little stuff down in Nashville, and going to be up in Massachusetts. So if you're up in the area and you want to see either one of those shows, I highly recommend jumping into them.
Check your microphone again.
Seriously?
Yeah, I think you're on it.
What the hell?
There you go. You're back.
All right. Well, I've been streaming through.
That's all right.
Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to pick you up where we're going to be, right?
Yep.
Did you just talk about?
Yeah. Where exactly we're going to be?
All right. You just talked about it. So I'm going on to the round table.
I said Massachusetts and Nashville. Do you want to be more specific?
I'm just going to go to Nashville.
Okay.
And last thing we got to talk about is the roundtable. If you're not already involved in it, you can go and look for us on Google Plus Hangouts, which actually I just found out is changing over from Google Hangouts in the Air, which is what we're using, to YouTube Live. It's brand new. It's coming out 12th.
That sounds more better.
I think it's much more better.
I think I'd rather be on YouTube Live than Hangouts.
It's a much more fancy place. I think we might have to wear a tie. I don't know.
I don't even know how to tie a tie.
That's okay.
Okay.
What are we talking about today?
We're actually going to be starting to go down this. It's not complex. It's lengthy, but it's not complex process of digesting the entire emergency and developing plans and implementing what you have and analyzing the scene and doing this whole thing that is mentioned in NFPA 472 called APIE.
All right.
Which is kind of the hazmat version of size up. So if you're a firefighter, you know what size up is. This is really a very detailed step-by-step size up for hazmat.
You know what? When we do these outlines, usually one guy kind of spearheads the outline, and then the other guy kind of just fills in the in between the lines. And when Mike first came to it with this idea, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a snore fest. Horrible.
And boy, was he right.
I was like, but when I started reading this, if my first reaction was, I already know how to handle this stuff. But the thing is that this really broke down the thought process to a granular level, something that you can actually try to break apart, improve on, and then reassemble it. And really get better at it. And this goes from everything from the brand new technician operations awareness guy all the way up to that incident commander specialist or whatever you might have, because you can really improve your game by just getting to know the parts. It's not this elusive experience pool that we draw from. It's actually, when you break it down and put labels on it like Mike did here, I think it's gonna work. So I'm imploring you, actually sit through and listen to us for a little while and let us wax on about wax on.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest differences between the size up for a firefighter and the size up for the hazmat technician, especially those who are me and Bob frequent this a lot. We do this a lot. It's pretty much solely what we do. We not only have to be the technicians, but we also have to, at the same time, be looking at the bigger picture, because if we have inexperienced bosses or we have inexperienced chief or people above us that don't have the same level of training that we do or experience, we're guiding that scene. We're expected to guide that scene. We're giving the incident commander the information he needs, and sometimes with kind of suggesting decisions. So to be able to walk through this process on a grand scale, to be able to see the macro vision of where you want to be and where you want to go, it not only helps yourself, but it helps everybody on scene.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's first the scene, right? And the answer, the question I'm going to ask Mike is, how do you eat an elephant?
I'm sorry, an elephant?
Yeah. How do you eat an elephant? That's the question I'm throwing at you.
I guess I don't know. I'd probably barbecue it low and slow, help break down some of that beautiful connective tissue.
I meant all right. I meant the enormity of the question. Only a fat guy would give me an answer like that. No,
wait, what?
It's like a bit at a time. All right. Do you understand?
Yeah. I mean, I'd still barbecue it, and then I would do it a bit at a time.
All right. I'm going to put the joke into perspective. It was a metaphor. I went right over his head. I'm going to take it. It's a way we get through a situation that seems overbearing or massive or complex.
Right. And this is not, again, something that's going to tell us what to do. This isn't an SOP for actions. This is a thought process. This is a guide. This is a way to logically and scientifically break down everything that you see in front of you and make sure that your choices are going to be not based upon fear, emotion, or what you think or don't think, but upon information and science and pure fact.
Okay. Well, okay. So this method systematically breaks down step by step to handle basically any call, and it's scaling, right, Mike?
Yes. Yeah. From the littlest incident to giant 3, 4, 5 day multi-company, multi-agency stuff. Yeah.
We're up to 15.
16.
Okay.
I thought you skipped something. I thought you landed me at 15. I did 15. You're at 16.
I'm on 16.
Go.
So this is really no different than what we do for a fire size up, and only instead the variability of the building and the fire type and the size and location. Now we're dealing with chemical, physical properties and stuff like that. So just like any other size up, Mike, when does it start?
All right. So first of all, sit back and we need to refocus our hazmat mind. For the firefighters out there, you need to refocus in the hazmat mind. And you need to think of hazmat more like a jigsaw puzzle than anything else, in which each piece of the information is like a single piece of the puzzle. Not one of those pieces of information can tell us about the big picture. All right. And it's our job to gather up all these little pieces and tidbits of information, these puzzle pieces, and put them together. And, not only put them together, but make sure they fit correctly. That way we can take these small pieces and gather the bigger picture. When these pieces line up perfectly, they make sense.
Okay. And my size up starts with waking up at home before going to work. Would you agree with that? Absolutely.
This is when you start to you wrap your head around the day. You're taking a look at the weather. It's what, like 183.5 degrees right now.
Celsius.
So Celsius.
Right.
So when we're headed to work, we're kind of starting to wrap our mind around the brain of, flammability, high heat, high reactivity, all that other stuff.
Yeah, and temperature, rain, snow, hot, cold, dry, humid, all has an effect on things and I'm just going off on a tangent here. It's just temperature is going to affect my flammability. I can have a diesel leak that all year round is not a big deal, but right now where me and Mike are, it is no joke, well over 100 degrees. Now, if you take that and put it on the asphalt, you very well may be in that file range. Humidity has a big deal with it because low humidity gives more static discharge, and I might have a flammability. So all these things are going to factor into your thought process every day.
And you know what gets really funky in humidity?
What?
Like 90% of our meters.
Yeah, that's true.
So it needs to be something that we sit and think about. We're like, all right, are these true readings? Am I getting something that I can rely on, or is this being, fungazied by the fact that it's 160% humidity out?
Right. And you know what? And the other companies, they bust our chops because we have air conditioning inside the rigs, even when they're parked inside the firehouse. And, oh, you guys are very fancy. You have air conditioning. We give them the excuse of, well, it's because the meters are very humidity sensitive. And
right. We've taken the meters out of the rig to make room to relax in this beautiful air conditioning, but they don't need to know that.
Right. The Keurig. So
the Keurig.
What else?
All right. So what's the next piece of size up information?
That would probably be when the run or the incident or the emergency, whatever you call it in your area, actually comes in. And hopefully you have a dispatcher that is on the ball, because possible information they collect can give you some really great information. Now, where me and Mike work, we have fire dispatchers. They are specialized for fire. Some jurisdictions have one dispatcher that does police, EMS, and fire. And though they wear many hats, might not be the best for you, but they all are pretty much well-trained. And I'm saying they want to help you get to where you got to go with the best information, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hopefully you get a guy who's on the ball and has some kind of ability to sit and go, hey, all right, well, what's happening? Give me a good rundown. But there's a bunch of things that if they haven't collected, you may want to prompt them to collect. All right. And one of the biggest is going to be the product that's involved. This can really start to get your mind going as far as with the conditions that you see outside, the weather, all the stuff that you thought about when you were at home. All right, how is this product going to start to, how is it going to start to react? How am I going to be predicting its behavior? What is it going to do in the temperature? And then as well as what was the situation that caused this substance to get out of its container to begin with? You know, what was happening? Are we industrial accident? Is this a transportation accident? Is there a plane crash, train derailment? Like, what's going on?
Right. And sometimes we have scenes that there's victims involved, right? Including injuries, maybe from a detonation, deflagration, maybe from the effects of the chemical physical properties, maybe from the after effects. But these things are important to us. And if we can get the signs and symptoms, that may lead us down a certain road. Or conversely, lead us away from something that is probable. Oh, no, it's going to be this. And the signs and symptoms are not matching, that little spidey sense should go off. This is going to help us rule in or out things or select our meters, PPE, and the like.
We actually really screwed up a Con Ed drill once because of that.
Really?
Yeah, we were there. We were
Con Ed is Consolidated Edison. That's the electric and power authority of New York City.
Right. So they got these huge facilities and plants, and we drill with them every once in a while. And they were doing this large scale drill, and they turned around and they said, okay, the person's exhibiting these signs and symptoms, and we have these chemicals in the room, and this jar is what spilt. And me and the other resource guy, we were flipping through, and we actually screwed up the whole drill because we turned around and said, this is not the chemical we're dealing with. These signs and symptoms do not relate to this chemical. And nobody, I guess the people setting up the drill didn't expect anyone was going to research the signs and symptoms And they're like, no, 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 we just made that up for the drill. Like, we're continuing down the road of this chemical, but it threw everybody off for a good half hour, 40 minutes, because we started acting. Now we got to go back and we got to resize up. So it's the injuries, man. The signs and symptoms can be a huge help.
I would have taken my resource book and slammed it on a drawer on the floor and just said, "Look what you did.
Look what you did. Bad. Bad. You take the controller and you shove his nose in the NIOSH. You say, bad."
So also another thing is the condition of the container. You know, we just got the New York City Fire Department Hazardous Material Battalion just got iPhones. Now we had Nextels, the old archaics. You can run them over the truck, the two-way radios. But we just upgraded the iPhones, and I'm not going to get into the minutia of it, but they're a little bit. They're not up to full functioning ability right now. But
no,
surprising. But wouldn't it be great in today's day and age if I can call a chief first due company and say, "What do you have?" and they can send me a picture. And I can interpret it. It's not coming through some guy that really doesn't care, really doesn't know. You know, the guy that says, "Yeah, I got 50 gallons of gasoline on the floor. Where's it coming from?" It's coming from a Prius. No, it's not. There's no way gallons coming from a Prius.
No, it is. It is. See, the Prius jammed itself under the 406. The gasoline is leaking through the. You know, going one step further with that. How about the FaceTime? And the Hangouts and stuff like this. Hey, anybody got a smartphone? Let me see the scene. Walk around. Let me see what's going on.
Yeah, show me the bottle.
We've got all these great technologies. Some of the other things that you can get from the dispatcher is a callback number, which who doesn't have a cell phone on them to be able to call back the person who dialed 911 and be like, "Hey, what are you seeing? What do you have? What do you got?" Who knows? You could be talking to the foreman. You could be talking to the guy that was driving the truck. So that callback number can be a really great resource.
All right, skip to for Haz Mat. You can gather a lot more information.
Okay. Marking. All right, now as one of the, I guess what would be the best way to say this, differences between fire and hazmat, okay? As hazmat, you can gather a lot more information than you can if you're a fire company responding to a fire. Because the hazmat team most likely is going to be traveling a lot further than the first due units. So you have a lot more capability of finding out what's going on and taking in information before you get there.
Right. And this information that we can gather are things that first due units are seeing. So we're getting a trained person on scene to give us some information. And the more highly trained they are, the better the information that you're getting. So, however, take this with a grain of salt, as it's been many times that the information was wrong. You know, and we've had everything from completely the wrong product to they were on another scene giving us information about a completely different emergency blocks away than we were responding into because they interpreted it wrong.
Right.
You know?
Yes. Totally. It is amazing how things can get so messed up between one thing and another. And try to talk to whoever's directly on scene gathering information. Don't rely on this phone chain, I guess you could say, the phone chain, because things really get screwed up. Try to go right. You know, if you have the opportunity to talk to the guy that was walking through the scene, then talk to that guy. Don't wait for that guy to talk to the chief, who's going to turn around and talk to your chief, who's going to turn around and talk to your officer, who's going to tell you what's going on. Too much information is going to get lost, and you want to be able to ask that person a direct question right away. So, hey, I've got this truck flipped over on its side. All right, hey, can you identify the truck? No, not really. All right, walk around to the back. Tell me how this truck looks in comparison to the wheel wells. You know, like simple stuff like that, that if you were to do the phone chain, it would take way too long.
Right.
All right. So that's responding on scene, like that's going. And the way we kind of broke this down is we are starting from away from the scene and we're moving forward, and we're going to focus in as we move forward. And this method allows us to gain kind of a macro view of the emergency. So one of the first things that you're going to see as you start to arrive is, what is the place? What is the use?
Right. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I shot to the end to get the ending ready because I see it's coming up. Okay, I'm walking. And that could be what, residential, right? A place where people live.
Right. Which is going to give us what? Like, what are, we say residential. Is there any hazard class that you can't find in a residential area?
I would mark a residential as dangerous.
Dangerous.
As everything. Yeah.
It even has radiation. A lot of people completely forget the fact that every smoke detector has a radiation source.
Right. And you might not have huge quantities, and hey, you might have huge quantities. There are some hobbyists that go a little overboard, myself included. I regularly keep, fuming, acids here, just for the kids to play with. Because they love it.
It's scars that they will be able to look back on and have memories associated with it.
Clustering memories. That's what I think of. And it's whatever. Anyway, what else do we got? What else?
All right. So you arrive on scene and you could be looking at a commercial place like a Home Depot or a pool warehouse, something that contains potentially a lot of different chemicals, not in tremendous bulk size, but in enough to cause some serious issues.
Right. You got a bigger quantity, usually packaged for smaller deployment, but usually in tighter spacing. Think about any Home Depot Lowe's aisle where you go down that solvent aisle. You have a ton of different solvents, all in relatively close proximity to each other. Some of them may react, and I guarantee they do not take any thought process of where they put them in relation to each other. So though the quantities are larger and are packaged smaller, there is no doubt that there is reactivity in that aisle.
Right. And then God forbid you mix them and then they react and then they catch on fire. And now you've got that whole McGilla gorilla to deal with.
We can even go into industrial. Industrial, we're talking about mass quantities, probably not packaged at all.
Yeah, no, huge bulk. I mean, everything from huge bulk containers and packages to little stuff that's being manufactured and brought down to retail size.
Right. And we usually see the solids in the pellet form, flake form, whatever it is, in like huge stalls. Like they store it for, like an outdoor sand lot with cinder block walls partitioning these things off. And they have nothing more than a corrugated steel roof over it. It is, at least the ones we've seen, they are not the most heartwarming. So,
right. And even the most mundane industrial facility, like we have a Coca-Cola plant down the road, right? This Coca-Cola plant regularly burps ammonia. And it has huge tanks of phosphoric acid, like just tremendous quantities of stuff that you wouldn't realize. And you're going to see these things when you pull up. These are going to be the large farm tanks. You can't not see a large farm tank pulling up. Right. You can't not see a huge bulk chemical storage tank as you pull up. So these are the things that you're looking at, that you're going to be gathering around. What about taking a look at exposures?
Right. You can have interconnected buildings, and I mean any variation of this. You can have interconnected buildings vertically. You can have interconnected buildings residential to commercial, industrial to commercial, residential to residential. You can have, you name it, you can have it. You can think of it. It's out there. All right.
How about down?
Yeah, you can have parking garages. You can have.
We had a toluene leak. I think it was like a 500-gallon toluene tote, and just below the building was a subway.
Oh, yeah.
And it had leaked down into the subway. So all sorts of exposures on all six. What is that? Is that six sides? That's six sides, right?
Yeah. Or seven.
Like
if
seven.
You go at the other dimensions and stuff. Okay.
We also want to consider storm drains. If you're in a city, you're in a very interconnected web of storm drains and sewer drains and things like that. An incident that's happening in one place can very easily trickle down and have an effect. Yards, miles, half a mile away, you can have an effect, a reaction underground. So being able to, again, we're taking in think of taking in this entire scene. What's around me?
Right. And they can leak to lakes, rivers, oceans, or we can have the actual incident within the lake, river, or ocean, in which case you may be integrating multi-jurisdictional type of responses from the Coast Guard. They get very touchy when you go into the waterway.
Yeah.
They
don't like you doing anything.
No, very, very touchy.
Good guys, but touchy. Definitely not. They take themselves very seriously.
Yes.
I feel like everyone but us does. You know what's nice about taking in the picture from a distance is you can also see what's happening with the product on these larger scales. If you are arriving on scene and it's a transportation accident, you really can get a good picture of what's leaking. You know, how many leaks do you have coming up? Where's the product flowing to? If you're arriving on an industrial scene, what kind of smoke is coming out? What is the product doing? What is the container doing? You get all these things that you can really see from a distance.
Right. And this allows us to take in much more information from a safe distance. And again, like Mike was saying, use your binoculars. I use a monocle. I don't use a monocular.
The one that goes click, 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 click.
Oh, Pirates one or the Mr. Peanut one. That's what I like to use. You know, you can really get a bird's eye view from a long way away, a very safe way away. Get a lot of information out of there.
And what do you hear? What do you see? And what do you smell? And I know that we're not supposed to be smelling anything. I know that. But you know what? The fact is that when the Coca-Cola plant down the road from the firehouse burps out its ammonia, you're smelling that as you're traveling down the road, and there's nothing that you can do about that. So if you do, and that is that should tingle your senses, like, holy crap, I'm this far away. I'm still on the highway and I'm smelling what it is that I'm going to. So that is it's a piece to the puzzle.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Haz Mat Guys. Thank you for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us and hopefully make your job a little bit easier.
You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus at the Haz Mat Guys. And please take a moment to go to iTunes, put in a review if you want to of the podcast. We'd really be much happier if you just started spreading the word, telling others, forcing them to listen. Put it on in the bunk room if you like the people that you work with. You have any kind of comments or anything like that, you can call us at 843-628-1484. That's 843-6-THE-MAT.
And we're also recording this show live, which we're doing right now, and producing a live, unedited version on YouTube every week. So you can find us on Google Plus and follow us and you'll be notified when this show starts. Actually, this live show is out, 5 days before the real podcast comes out.
Yeah, it's pretty much the moment that we decide to shut the live off, right? It pretty much comes out.
Very meta.
Yeah. We're live, and then we're not live, and then we're in space forever.
Spaceballs.
We always look forward to hearing back from you guys. We really do, especially the bad stuff, because I blame that on Bob, and makes me feel better about myself. And interesting runs, things that you have had, because we don't see it all. So hearing from you guys is fantastic. If you get anything like that, send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com.
Remember, guys, don't just get on the job, get into the job. All right, I'm marking. All right, go back up. We're going to do the next one. So we're going to go back to the beginning.
Yep.
And we'll flip-flop that. This is now episode 44. Okay, I'm marking. Whenever you're ready. I start, right?
Yes.
Good day, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Haz Mat Guys. I'm Bobby Salveson, so let's get into it.
Welcome back, episode. Wow, I suck right off the bat. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 44. You are listening to the premier podcast dealing with hazardous materials response for the fire responder, where we're going to give you the knowledge and the insight to do your job safely and effectively. I'm Michael Monaco. Glad to be here with my co-host, Bob Salverson.
Good.
What's going on?
Oh, we're doing good. We're continuing down this APIE's part 2, I guess it would be.
Yes.
We're just going to, I guess we'll just get right back into it because We'll just rip the Band-Aid off. Just go right into it.
Just go right in. No warm up. You're not gonna massage the area at all. Just
listen. I'm watching the Olympics, and these guys just go out and run. So let's do it.
I tried that before, and I passed out. I was like, if Bolt can do it, so can I.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
You saying boob? All right. Moving along. We're coming back in. You were talking about transportation size ups. That's what we're going to really get into now. So, what do you got to say about transportation size ups?
All right. So, for those that were listening last week, we started off by saying we're going to be approaching the scene and we're going to be taking a macro view in. So, one of the very first things that we're going to see in a transportation accident is what kind of vehicle is involved. What is happening? Just knowing this can help us gather tremendous amounts of information or lead us to know what we need to find out. So, for example, like an unknown box truck, we're going to approach with extreme prejudice because we know absolutely nothing. The less information that we know, the tighter that we got to be. One of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to try to find pretty much for every type of transportation that's out there, we're going to want to find the shipping papers that are associated with it. Right. So just we're going to kind of do a quick review of what these things are called. I don't even know if it's really necessary. I mean, if you call it the papers, are they going to look at you like you got.
Yeah, the guy knows.
The guy knows.
Looking for.
Where are the papers?
He knows. In a truck, it's called the bill of lading. Right, it's in the cab of the truck, and in reality, this guy's probably got it between his seat and the passenger seat on the back wall of the cab, or more than likely, he's got it in the door pocket. That's where I've usually seen them, and a lot of the shippers they put like a little slot on the door pocket so that they have it on the intermodals. And these are those cage tanks that you might see attached to the back of a tractor trailer. The shipping papers are going to be on the vertical beam of one of the four pipes. I guess the frame you would call it.
Yeah, like the frame. I think it just kind of sits in there like a waterproof.
Right.
And on a choo-choo train, right, we've got, what is it called? A constants or a waybill.
Right.
Again, I think just wear the papers would be fine. But I guess if you want to sound professional, not that I ever have. All right, these are going to be found with either the conductor or the engineer.
Right, and if you board a ship like a pirate, you go and you find a dangerous cargo manifest, which is actually the couple that I've seen are in like a mailbox on the bridge, and they're with the first mate or the captain or something.
Yeah, it's really the wheelhouse. Like it's whoever's in charge. Yeah, that would be great. You think they would allow us to put patches on every time we board a ship from now on?
That's my thing. I keep it in my pocket.
We know a guy who answers all the phones in a pirate voice wearing a patch. He's an interesting fella. Quick shout out to Joe Carney over there. What about an airplane?
It's an air bill, and it is with the pilot. You see a trend here that it's always with the guy in charge. But if in reality there's not a lot of reasons other than like crash in an airplane that a hazmat in the airplane gets out, they're pretty stable as well, right? I mean, they transport stuff,
right?
A lot more than you would think. And actually, that's an upcoming episode that we're going to be having. I'm in negotiations with a friend of mine that's works for a major international airline, and he's going to come on and do some hazmat for us. It is surprising. They carry, and I don't want to get off too far off the thing, but they carry like bodies, which would be a biohazard. They carry an enormous amount of fuel, the hydraulics. There's a lot of stuff, and we'll get into that, I guess, in the future.
My uncle is a mortician, and he goes to JFK all the time to pick up bodies.
See?
Yeah.
I drop them off.
One time he went to pick up the bodies, and the pilot was in trouble because he didn't pressurize the cabin, and he froze monkeys that were in the cargo hold. Froze them solid.
I shouldn't laugh.
No, I'm not. I'm laughing with you, not at the situation. Right. All right, then we start to look at the size of the vehicle. So we've got the type and what is the size. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you sit and you look at it and you've got a tremendous tractor trailer, then you've got a lot more product. And if you have a little tractor trailer or a box truck, you probably have a lot less product because you can't, anything going in a box truck is probably going to be in retail form.
Right.
It's not going to be in bulk form.
Right.
So you're looking at whatever is broken or spilled, you're probably looking at a lot less of it. However, you've got a lot higher probability of things mixing with an unknown box truck, which is why we take so much caution with them. So the size of the vehicle really does matter. And it is going to give you, it's going to, again, just starting to get those wheels turning as far as what resources you're going to be needing and how you're going to, stop what it is you're stopping and mitigate the situation.
Yeah. And even the condition of the vehicle. And I mean this in all different terms. Is it on its four tires? Is it on its side or upside down? Then obviously you're going to have some other mitigating issues. Is it completely obliterated? Is the back doors open? Is there product coming out the back? Take all this into consideration, guys.
How about something as simple as, is it on dirt or is it on the roadway? And it doesn't seem like it's going to make a big difference, but think about this. We had a tractor trailer of gasoline that flipped over. It went off the highway onto the dirt, and you couldn't really tell that it was leaking into the dirt until they started digging around. Whereas on pavement, you're going to see a 100-gallon per minute leak flow down the road. If you're on dirt, it may just drop straight down, especially if you're in a really sandy area. So just the where it lands makes a difference in how you're going to proceed. Then we talked to this is really big when you do your operations level stuff, right? Is the placard. Everything that's transported above certain weights, unless you're in certain tables, we're not going to get into all that crap, but look at the placard. That's the sign that's on the side of the truck. That's going to give you a tremendous amount of information on the hazard class.
Right. And you can have like an industrial or even a commercial site. What would you see there?
Right off the bat, I would see markings and signs. Things like the 704 diamond, just plastered right out there. We see that. I keep referring back to the Coca-Cola plant, but we see the phosphoric acid 407 sitting on the side of that tank. That lets me know right away that I've got something within a certain range of health and flammability and reactivity and any kind of special crap that may be associated with it. From a distance, I'm seeing that. I'm getting my head wrapped around the procedure. If I see a 0 health and a 3 flammability and no reactivity, that is going to change my game plan versus something that has a high health risk, high reactivity, and no flammability.
Right. Yeah, and we have places in our area that have almost 20 NFPA 704s around there. And please, I know this sounds very basic, but those numbers aren't UN numbers. They don't tell you the chemical. In fact, they don't tell you anything. They just tell you a hazard. And when you have 20 different NFPA 704s, you can't really tell which one's for what. So you go with the worst case and you shoot for there.
They're not even required on a federal level. No. And you don't have to have it per chemical. So you could have a place carrying 20 chemicals. They have one 704 diamond, and each category doesn't necessarily correspond with the same chemical. So if you have propane and nitric acid, you're going to get a 4 on your flammability, and you're going to get a 4 on your health and a 4 on reactivity. You have no idea how many chemicals you're dealing with. You just know that overall, the worst of everything that's there is a 4, 4, and a 4.
Right. And how are you going to know this is by doing your proper pre-plans. And what I mean by pre-planning, I mean, before the incident comes in as an emergency, you're going to do these site inspections or drill sites or whatever, and you go make nice with the people. You get to shake the hands of the guys that are going to help you. We once had a scenario where we had a chemical storage facility, and we could not find the guy that was in charge of it. And we just kept, you look around, and there was a guy just standing there like a weird bystander. And finally one guy went over, he goes, who are you? What are you doing here? He goes, oh, I'm the chemist. He's in blue jeans and sneakers. And when we brought the guy over, he was so incredibly helpful, but he was not coming to help us. We found him, and then everything started getting better. So that pre-planning, getting to know who Joe is, getting to know how many feet or what's together, and maybe saying, hey, listen, bro, I don't really think you should keep this with this, mitigating a problem in the first place.
Absolutely. Pre-plans are huge. You should know them. You should be walking through your facility. You should be training on anything out of the ordinary that you have within your jurisdiction. It's so important. We could be looking at things like smoke condition as we start to approach the building. A lot of these chemicals, when they start to mix, you get endothermic reactions, and they're going to give off some form of smoke. uh, a light haze, an orange smoke, a green smoke, something that's anything that's going to just allow you to take a piece of the puzzle and put it to something else to get a bigger picture.
Right. And you can even have like a collapse from a rapid deflagration, detonation, polymerization, something that's going to maybe disrupt the structure. Because remember, the structures are really just kind of like things that are transferring weight, gravity to the outside, so they go to ground. So a lot of them use gravity. A lot of them aren't even fixed properly, like a roofing to a wall. And if you get a sudden uplift, it might not resettle on that same spot, and you have a very big potential for collapse. Keep it in mind.
Yep. And you got containers there. One of the first things they're going to do is overpressurize. It's very, very common. As we start to now, we're getting closer and closer to whatever the issue is. All right, we're going to start to get a better look at the container and the building. So if you're walking up and you're now becoming much more intimate with the bulk storage, for example, where you're walking up, you're seeing a sign that says what it is. You're starting to interact with the people that work there.
Right. You could just look for the labels. You might have just labels sticking out in front of you and saying, "Hey, it's an anhydrous ammonia." Oh, good, thanks.
Yeah, or you're in a warehouse, the labels, boxes, you got all these different signs. If you're out on the road, we talked about the shipping papers before.
Right.
All these things.
Yeah, SDS papers, all these things, and give great detailed information, and don't discount the people that work there.
Yeah, they can be tremendous help. And don't discount those SDS sheets. They can give you. If I had my choice between a NIOSH and an SDS, I'm going to go with the SDS every single time because it's going to give me really detailed information about the chemistry of what it is that we're doing. We're gathering more information.
All right, so now let's start really getting into, and I know this is like, we did this already. We did this basically from episode 3 to, I'm going to guess, around 10 or 11. We started really breaking down the chemical and physical property, well, more the chemical properties down to a very granular level, but we're just going to really brush over these kind of lightly because the chemical physical properties really drives how we operate, how we set up our strategy and tactics in both the macro and micro sense. So first thing we have to think about is the state of matter, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you've got the 3 basic states: solid, a liquid, and a gas.
Okay, so let's break that down. Why does those 3 states of matter matter?
Oh, geez. It's probably one of the most critical things to know. I mean, let's just say from a cleaning up perspective, right? If we're going to clean up a solid, we're going to use different tools than if we're cleaning up a liquid versus if we're trying to get rid of a gas. Like literally everything changes from a solid, a liquid, a gas, and that's just cleanup. I mean, you could have personal protective equipment. You could have who you need to evacuate, what you need to do. There is
profiles.
Yeah, there is so much between just a solid, a liquid, and a gas that it's not even funny. I mean, let's say we had like an acid that didn't come in contact with water yet, right? So we have a powder.
Mm-hmm.
Much different than if we have it in the liquid form because it's going to stay there. I know where it's going to be. I know where it's going to be a day from now, 2 days from now. I know what it's going to do when I pick up the shovel. If I have an acid that is now in a liquid form, it's going to run down the drain. It's going to find the low point. God, everything changes. And then gas, forget it. The gas is the hardest one to deal with.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, everybody laughs at, oh, solid, liquid, or a gas. Like, that's pretty basic. But no, I mean, it really does fundamentally change everything from start to finish. All right. As we move on to from a solid liquid to gas, then kind of one of the things that I want to know next is what is the toxicity of this product?
Okay. So, I mean, it's basically
How do we determine toxicity? Like, if we're going to be doing research and we're going to say, okay, I have chemical A, how would you start to turn around and develop a profile for how this substance is going to be
oh,
toxic?
yeah. Okay. Then I would probably, my first move would be probably go to NIOSH and look up the ideal H,
And
because
what is the ideal age for those that a quick reference for those that don't remember?
the ideal H is the immediately dangerous to life and health. And that means that it is going to affect me. Remember, some of these chemicals are dangerous for people, and some of it is for in general. This is going to deal with the people aspect of it. So there are things like, let's say, carbon monoxide that's going to affect me, and other things that may not have an ideal H because they won't affect me. Like carbon monoxide won't melt my table, but it's going to have a big effect on me. So these things like carbon monoxide, the ideal H is 1,200 parts per million. Nice thing to know.
Okay, but what is that 1,200 parts per million? But what is that really? If I have nothing to put that into perspective, what does that really mean to me? So what is, we talk CO 1,200 parts per million, but yet when we go on runs and things like that, we're always, evacuating people at 100 parts per million. We're always looking to fix it at 9 parts per million. So how does this 1,200 relate to how quickly it's going to affect me?
Well, there's actually a chart for this of the common things, of the signs and symptoms and what's going to happen based upon the parts per million and the length of exposure.
Okay. So we could turn around and kind of start to develop a table of parts per millions and how effective that is. Like, for example, hydrogen cyanide, right? All the stuff that we now hear is really killing firefighters. It's what they've used in the gas chambers. It's 50 parts per million. Much more badder. I mean, we talk about CO all the time, right? It's 1,200 parts per million. CO is a silent killer, this and that. Well, Jesus, hydrogen cyanide is at 50.
Right.
So when we're starting to develop this profile of how toxic is something, we have at least some numbers to start to compare, what really is toxic versus what is like, all right, I can kind of deal with this a little bit.
Right.
Right. You good?
Yeah. Do you want to just go into TWA? Did I miss something?
Nope. I was just pausing because you paused.
Oh. Unpause.
Unpause. So we've got the IDLH, and we also have other measurements that we can take into account. And these other measurements, they're going to help, again, develop this toxicity profile. And one of the first things is going to be the TWA. And this is the time-weighted average. This is where the government or NIOSH or whoever sets up this crap turns around and says, okay, you can be exposed for this material on average for a 40-hour work week.
Right.
So if you get something, if you walk in and you have a chemical and however you're able to figure it out, you're able to figure out that you've got 100 parts per million and the TWA of that product is 150 parts per million, that's really not that bad.
Right. And the TWA is a time weighted average. We went into this in depth in prior episodes and it's in the show notes. Another one is the PEL, the permissible exposure limit. And that's pretty much the max you can be exposed to once again. And these are given out by two different entities. One's by OSHA, one's by, off the top of my head, I don't remember what it is. I think it's PESH. I think that's the other one. And basically, they're basically the same thing. One is 10 hours a day for 4 days a week. One is 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. It's apples and oranges. Well, actually, it's apples and apples kind of thing, actually. But what else do we got?
All right, and we've got the steel, and we've got all these things. They help us develop an idea of how toxic something is going to be. We want to look at things like routes of entry, the toxicity parts per million, so we can start to get an idea of basically our PPE and how we're going to approach this. It helps us. It helps give us a better overall view.
Right, and it also helps us get our goals on what we're going to bring it down to. So now we know where our field goal is that we have to get it to in order to be within the limits. So it kind of sets up that parameter of where we can start de-escalating.
Right. Yeah. Don't walk into an industrial site that normally has 100 parts per million of a VOC in the air and try to ventilate it down to zero. It's never gonna happen. You're gonna end up pissing off the people who own the plant, and you're definitely going to catch some flack for it because it was unnecessary. You didn't know your job enough to open them up when they were supposed to be opened up.
Right.
All right. Next thing that we want to kind of look at when we're dealing with the chemical physical properties, because again, we're just trying to weave all this together to a better understanding of how we operate and how we proceed, is the vapor pressure.
All right. Vapor pressure, what it really is in a nutshell is how much a liquid wants to give off vapor and get out. Basically.
That's it.
All right.
That's it. Now, why do we care about that? We kind of care about that because the more it gets up and out into the atmosphere, the more it can reach us. Remember, we said gas was the worst thing that we could be dealing with. Right. So if this product is a gas, then if it's a liquid and a lot of it is becoming a gas, then that's an issue that we need to factor in when we're dealing with our planning and our PPE and everything that we're going to be going forward with.
Absolutely. And that goes right into vapor and gas densities. What is this? Vapor and gas density gives us where a vapor or a gas and even a liquid is going to go in relationship to something else. And we usually use just that standard of air and water. And so it's going to tell us whether it's going to go up or down. And that's going to change an enormous amount of things. It's going to change our PPE, our metering height, our decontamination ways, our mitigation, our damming and diking. I'm going off the top of my head. There's a million things that one number of vapor density and specific gravity is going to change on me.
Yeah, I mean, you can have a scene where you're doing a ton of stuff, or you're just sitting back letting an acetylene tank leak outside. Like it can be from walls to the walls to nothing. Then we move on to pH. Definitely something that we want to know. And when we take pH and we combine it with that vapor pressure and also the scene and the size up, now we're really starting to put the pieces together to figure out what am I getting myself into? What am I going in? What is my ultimate outcome? What are my goals? So all this stuff starts to kind of come full circle. I did yours. I don't know why I did that.
All right. I thought you were just going to flow right into flammability. Good.
Nope. Okay. And then we've got flammability, which is probably the, besides vapor pressure, the grand poobah of the chemical physical properties that we want to know. What is flammability? It's really, is it going to burn?
Right.
Combustibility, flammability, all that other crap. Is it possibly going to burn at some point in time?
Right. Or can we edge it towards that point? And if it's real easy or ready to go right now, that's going to change some things. So, and how are we going to know about that, Mike? What is the thing I'm looking for in the NIOSH or on the SDS that's going to indicate me how flammable something is right now?
The presence of a UEL and an LEL.
Right. And another secondary thing is probably the flashpoint number, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's a real good indication of, so we have a flammability, and then we have how dangerous is this to me right now. And this is one of those numbers that start to go back to the size up that we were doing when it comes to temperature and weather and all this other stuff. Like Bob was saying with the diesel, like this is where flashpoint becomes an issue. Right. The diesel's on a hot roadway, it could flash. If we're in the middle of the winter time, we could pretty much mitigate this naked and not have to worry about getting burned.
Exactly. And and forgive me, I can never find it anywhere, but I know I've heard it. I believe that the temperature of the asphalt is the current temperature minus 10 doubled. I don't know why it sticks with me. So if it's 100 degrees out, it's 90, 180 degrees on the asphalt. Have you ever heard that?
I've heard it, and I have no idea how true that is, because think about this. There are times that it's incredibly hot out, but cloudy. And the roadway is going to be a lot less hot on a cloudy day than it is if there's not a cloud in the sky and it's high noon.
I'll give you that. If anybody, you know what? I'm throwing this out to the listeners. If you know that formula, or you can find it for me, or send me the reference. I know I heard it, but I can't find it. Please send it to me. That was a side tangent. I'm sorry I went off of that.
It's quite all right. It's quite all right. But you know what? That heat leads into the auto ignition temperature. So all these things kind of have, they're meshing.
The auto ignition temperature means that it can go up on its own. It means that it does not need. Well, it needs an ignition source. There's a difference between auto ignition and spontaneous ignition, meaning that people just burst into flames by themselves. Am I wrong?
I'm pretty sure auto ignition temperature.
Auto ignition, it means it does it by itself.
Yes.
That's when people burst into flames.
Yes, I love watching those videos.
I'm not going to cut that out because I'm an
idiot. Yeah, listen, we screw stuff up all the time. So why should you feel like you're the only one?
I'm not magical.
A quick example on this for auto ignition. A lot of people will sit and flashpoint and auto ignition, and they're like, "Yeah, but how does that really change our what we do?" Let's say you get a 407 that's been involved in a fire, but the tank hasn't ruptured, and the fire has been impinging on the tank for quite some time. It's quite possible that you have gotten that diesel to its auto ignition temperature. So now the fire was put out, you arrive on scene, and you carelessly, without thinking, walk up to one of the manhole covers and open it up to see what's going on. You've just introduced the oxygen to that environment. It was at its auto ignition temperature. There's no flame, there's no spark, we're not grounding and bonding right now because we're not thinking about it, and whoosh, you don't even need to ground and bond. You're a crispy critter right off the bat.
What Mike just described is the hazmat technician's equivalent of a fireman's backdraft.
Yeah.
That's literally what he just described. It's a chemical version of the backdraft. So, yeah, that happens all the time. And another one is solubility. And I got to say, guys, all these basic terminologies and stuff, I cannot speak how important it is to get a solid grasp of hazmat street level chemistry without knowing these things front and back. And solubility is one of those things. This is so important. Mike, give us a short, what is solubility?
All right, basically solubility is how well something is going to dissolve in water.
Right.
Short and sweet. If it's 100% soluble, like scotch, it's all going to mix in.
That would be miscible.
That would be miscible. And if it's not 100% soluble, like sugar and salt and coffee, then some of it'll mix in, some of it'll fall out. And if it's not soluble at all in any way, shape, or form, like oils, it's going to separate. Right. So there are a whole bunch of reasons for knowing the solubility.
Right, like decontamination.
Right? Huge. Yeah, absolutely. If I'm going to decon myself from scotch, I probably am not even going to use soap.
You probably call me.
Yeah, he'll lick it off. It'll be fantastic.
That's disgusting.
Whereas if I have got an oil on me, I need to figure out how to get this oil off. Grease, a liquid, so it's just a complete, for decon purposes, we really need to know the solubility so we know how to get this stuff off of us.
Right.
And then we need to be concerned about runoff.
Right. And even like the vapor dispersion. And one of our pals, Jeff Zintak from Phoenix, he wrote a whole article on, everybody's like, oh, chlorine clouds, chlorine leaks. You just take the hose line and you drop it. It makes hydrochloric acid. Nobody ever read the book. It's barely soluble. It doesn't go into water. It's like 0.7%.
Yeah, almost none of it. 0.7%. That's not negligible.
So it's a wives' tale. We're going to have to put that in the next episode. Anyway.
I think we did that as a wives' tale, didn't we?
I don't know. I might have done that.
I think we did that. I definitely think we did that. All right. And then as we move on, we're going to start talking and looking at the instability of that chemical, like oxidizers, for example. All right, where they turn around and they make things worse. They make things unhappy. They make them react with other things. To know that you're dealing with an oxidizer is huge.
Right. So yeah, and another one is polymerization, and we hear about it, but we really don't know what it is. It's an expansion from a changeover from monomers to polymers, and what happens is when it happens, it gets bigger and gives off a ton of heat, and this could change our actions because polymerization. A lot of people think is a cute, adorable thing that I spray around my windows and it keeps the cold air out, but in all reality, some of these things, when they're kept in a small, tight container, they can go off like bombs. And that's I'm concerned about. The second thing is that there is no stopping them.
No.
I can stop them. Once they go, they go.
They're done. They're done. They're like some of the guys at work. You push them too far and they just go off.
Right. I can't even walk out of the room like I usually do.
No, I got to sit and watch. Once a guy goes off, I mean, that's what you've worked for all night, is to get a guy to go off. Yeah. How can you leave then?
You gotta enjoy it. And then probably the last thing we're going to talk about for this episode is going to be radioactivity, right? And you can refer back to episode 7, which you can find at the hazmatguys.com/THMG007.
Dun, 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 dun.
And that we do a full show on radiation. But Mike, give us a couple of examples of how that would change our action, the presence or maybe even the non-presence of radioactivity.
Well, all right. Well, if we're supposed to have radioactivity and we don't, that's really going to kind of screw with our heads.
Yeah.
But if we have radioactivity, it's gonna slow everything down. Everybody's going to take their time and they're going to be looking to you to be like, hey, can you do the math on this? And what are we going to, and even, I guarantee you, even when you do the right thing and you're like, yeah, it's fine, just take that box and throw it back on the truck and let the guy drive away. You're going to cause, I mean, you're going to, forget about it. We're going to take a long, long time to make the right decision.
But you know what the funny thing is, and of all these hazards we just discussed in this episode, I got to say the last one, as soon as I hear it's a radioactive job, I'm like, whew.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, good. Thank you. It's so much easier.
So easy. So easy.
You can listen to episode 7, though.
Yeah. I got everything I need right then and there.
But what about, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead. You go.
I was just saying, even like we get neutron. When we always knew that neutron was, a bad guy thing. But now we're finding out a little bit more about this. And around the country, it seems to be a lot more prevalent than we originally thought in our little pond.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got that interview with Matthew Blows, right?
Yeah, good dude.
He good dude down in Kentucky, I believe. And he did a whole thing with us on a neutron run that they had, and just completely changed how I thought of radiation runs and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that about wraps it up, right?
That it really does. I mean, I think that's another episode done and gone.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Haz Mat Guys. Thanks for taking a little bit of your day to listen to us and hopefully make your job a little bit easier.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus at the Haz Mat Guys. Take a moment to go to iTunes, put in a review if you want. But we would really much more prefer you just kind of pass the word on about the show to other people. Let departments, trainings, whatever. Just let them know that we exist. And you want to make a comment, give us a ring on the hotline, 843-628-1484. That's 8346-THE-MAT.
That actually goes to a phone voicemail, and you can leave a voicemail. We'll put it actually on the show. But we are now recording the show and also producing a live, unedited version of the show on YouTube every week. So if you go and +1 us on Google, we will notify you that the show is starting, and you can sit and watch us unedited, make mistakes and whatnot. But you can also find us on Google Plus, which we just said, and follow us. And if that's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Send us your feedback at feedback@thehazmatguys.com, especially if you've got some kind of interesting incident that you were part of. We'd love to hear about it.
Well, remember, don't just get on the job. Get into the job. All right, don't stop. Good night, everybody.
Good night.